So actually, yesterday I was going through some of the translations of the Upanishads, and I came across the first paragraph of Sri Shankaracharya's introduction to his commentary on Aitareya Upanishad. नहीं, Aitareya नहीं, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. तो वो मुझे इतना बढ़िया लगा, I thought I'll read it out to you. So just give me. चलिए. So I'll just read this one page and then we will get started with our regular PowerPoint based interaction. So this is what Shankaracharya says. This is the translation of his Sanskrit. Quote, we propose to write a short introduction to the Shvetashvatara Upanishad in order that the treatise may be easily understood by those who inquire about Brahman. Atma, in brackets Jiva, is essentially consciousness, brackets Chitta, existence, brackets Sat, and bliss, brackets Ananda. It is one and without a second. Yet it becomes the victim of avidya, which rests in Atman and is dependent upon it. The existence of avidya is deduced from the universal experience, expressed by such statements as I am ignorant, I do not know myself, etc. Falling under the spell of avidya, Atman becomes lost, as it were, to the infinite majesty and knowledge which are innate in it. It thus falls prey to unending tribulations. Under the power of avidya, the jiva considers what is not the highest good of life to be the highest good wished for by all. Hence, the individual Atman, being unable to experience liberation, brackets moksha, which is really the highest good, falls into the ocean of miseries of samsara and wanders about, assuming the bodies of gods, men, animals, or birds, pursued by the sharks of malice, anger, and passion. In the course of this wandering, by chance, it may perform some meritorious action and therefore get to be exposed to the knowledge of Brahman. Then, when it performs action, it surrenders the result to God and becomes free of attachment, hatred, and other similar blemishes. Thus, becoming pure in heart, it realizes the transitory nature of the world and cultivates a spirit of dispassion towards the enjoyment of material objects here and hereafter. Seeking the knowledge of the Brahman, it approaches the preceptor and hears from him the teachings of Vedanta. Afterwards, it reasons about these teachings and meditates on them. At long last, it realizes the oneness of Brahman and the self as epitomized in the Vedic statement, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, rids itself of avidya and its effect and becomes free from grief. This is called liberation, which is characterized by the cessation of avidya and is attained through knowledge alone. Therefore, it is in the fitness of things that this Upanishad should undertake to teach the knowledge of Brahman, whose purpose is the destruction of avidya. इतना बढ़िया है,
इतना बढ़िया है, बहुत बढ़िया.
You know, he starts from the top of the stack and slowly comes down, and ekdam. I will send this thing, snapshot of this, screenshot of this. And इसी को, if you read it in Hindi, since it's available in Hindi, I'm going to read it in Hindi. Just give me 1 minute.
तो grab कर पाएंगे.
हिंदी की अपनी शक्ति है.
क्या? किसकी अपनी शक्ति है?
हिंदी की अपनी शक्ति है. अभी सामने आई.
बिल्कुल. So let me read it. This is the okay, but it is going to be but anyway, you guys will understand it far easier. So here we go. Quote, ब्रह्म तत्व के जिज्ञासुओं को सरलता से बोध कराने के लिए यह श्वेताश्वतरो उपनिषद की व्याख्या छोटे से ग्रंथ के रूप में आरंभ की जाती है. यद्यपि आत्मा सच्चिदानंद अद्वितीय ब्रह्म स्वरूप ही है, तथापि अपने ही आश्रित रहने वाली, अपने ही को विषय करने वाली और मैं अज्ञानी हूं, इस प्रकार अपने अनुभव से ही ज्ञात होने वाले चिदाभास युक्त अविद्या से उस जीवात्मा के सब प्रकार के स्वाभाविक पुरुषार्थ का अवरोध हो जाने से उस संपूर्ण अनर्थ की प्राप्ति हुई है, और उस अज्ञानवश कल्पना किए ही साधनों से अपनी इष्टा प्राप्ति अपुरुषार्थ को ही पुरुषार्थ मानकर परम पुरुषार्थ रूप मोक्ष पद प्राप्त न कर सकने के कारण मकरादि के समान रागादि दोषों से इधर उधर खींच जाकर देवता, मनुष्य एवं तिर्यक अथवा विभिन्न भेदों से युक्त अनेकों योनियों में विचरता रहता है। जब किसी पुण्य कर्म के द्वारा ब्रह्म विद्या का अधिकारी ब्रह्मणादि शरीर प्राप्त कर वह ईश्वरार्थ कर्मानुष्ठान करने से रागादि मलों से मुक्त और वस्तुओं को अनित्यवादी देखने से ऐहिक और पारलौकिक भोगों से विरक्त हो जाता है, तब आचार्य के पास जाकर उनके द्वारा वेदांत श्रवणादि करके मैं ब्रह्म हूँ, इस प्रकार ब्रह्म तत्व का साक्षात्कार वह अज्ञान और उसे कार्य की निवृत्ति हो जाने के कारण शोक रहित हो जाता है, क्योंकि अज्ञान निवृत्ति रूप मोक्ष ज्ञान के अधीन है। इसलिए ज्ञान ही जिसका प्रयोजन है, उस उपनिषद का आरंभ करना ही उचित है।
Raj, this was not the literal translation of the English text, right? There was some
So
difference.
the thing is, you see, so this is where I find a very interesting thing. Now, this is a word-to-word in the same sequence translation as a Sanskrit. Sanskrit I have, so I'll just show you this book. This is the Ishadi, Ishadi now. It is there in the last part. So this is, on one side you have the Sanskrit, on the other side you have the Hindi translation. Now, when you have some English translation like this, what they do is they make it in more idiomatic English.
Yeah.
So therefore, it is always so, in English, it was so pleasing. In Hindi, it was very, very tough to understand. So,
Hindi was in more detail. Like it used Chidabhas, which is reflected consciousness. That was not in English.
Correct,
English was kind of like, top level summary. Hindi was more to the point.
Exactly.
And more detailed.
So the thing that I normally do is, I read the English and the Hindi, because that is where, in the English, there is no reference to the Sanskrit text. So this is Swami Nikhilananda's translation, which is meant for a foreign audience.
Right,
but if you actually, therefore it is of that nature. But if you take Shvetashvataro is not there. 1 minute. Okay. There is no Shankaracharya's translation that I have. So if you take Swami Gambhirananda, then he has a word-to-word translation of Sanskrit, and there maybe you will find it. But Shvetashvatara, I was not able to find the Swami Gambhirananda's, because in the 8 Upanishads that I had shared with you, the PDF, you have only the Isha, Kena, Katha, and Taittiriya, and you have the others, which is Aitareya, Mundaka, Mandukya, and Prashna. So Shvetashvatara, I don't have the Sanskrit and the Hindi. But your point is very valid. That is what I have also ensured, that I have the Hindi translation of everything that I read in terms of Bhashya. So in English, it is very pleasing, right? But it is not totally accurate.
Yeah.
One clarification I need, Raj.
Tell me.
Actually, this is somewhere translated as Katha Upanishad and somewhere as Kathopanishad.
So it is not Katha. It is, Kathopanishad. Kataha Upanishad. So Sandhi ke sath Kathopanishad ban jata hai.
Kataha.
Katha. Ka or tha.
Tha.
So, and it is not Katha. It is not story wala Upanishad. Katha nahi hai wo.
हाँ, क्योंकि कुछ जगह मुझे ट्रांसलेशन वो भी मिला कथा उपनिषद, इसलिए वहां पर थोड़ा डिफिकल्टी हो रहा है। कथा उपनिषद कुछ है, अलग है क्या वो?
नहीं है। कथा उपनिषद वो इंग्लिश में जब KATHA लिखते हैं, इट इज बोथ थ एंड थ, but it
Right.
is actually Kathopanishad. Katha.
THO होना चाहिए था उसको.
हाँ, correct. वो अंग्रेजी में,
Right.
so therefore, see, this angresification is, see, if they follow strictly the transliteration rules, there are rules that if you want to say tha, you put one symbol below and all that.
Right.
But common janta will not understand, so therefore they do a half-baked transliteration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Kathera katha hai wo.
हाँ,
हाँ,
कठिन
ठठेरा कथा.
कठिन वाला कथा है.
Kathin, right. Right.
Okay, so let me put this up. Where are we, sir? 1 minute.
अब तो ठठेरा नाम की कोई चीज ही नहीं रह गई है.
Ah,
बचपन में ही
right.
देखे थे ठठेरा. बचपन में ही देखे थे
कठेरा.
जो बनाते थे बर्तन.
Share screen. Kठिन. So welcome to session 3, and here we are with the overview. So today we will be doing, actually we will be completing the matter part of it. If you recall, we did till, I think, the 5th one last week. So we will be doing the 6th gem today, 6.1 to 9. We'll be just doing 3 gems. Of course, it is broken down. So probably 4, 5. So this week may be a little shorter in terms of class, but we'll fill it up with some other discussions. So to continue the description of matter. So essentially what is happening in the selection that has been made by Dr. Phillips is that he has taken matter and the transformation of matter as the criteria for selecting it under Dvaita, because Dvaita by the very definition is, by his definition is matter and spirit. So this is a kind of anglicized way of selecting, but nevertheless, it gives us a good handle to explore the various Upanishads and parts of those Upanishads. And therefore, we take it to be okay if there is at least a common thread that we can pick up. So what is a common thread that we can pick up? In the last class, we did something in terms of how fire evolved, how water evolved, and some empirical examples of heat of emotion being the reason for the evolution of water from fire. And fire, of course, was created directly by Bhagwan or Brahma. And then from water, annam is created, and the example is that of watering of plants and anna being created. So transformation of matter. So here we have something along the same lines, but this is dealing with the transformation of matter within the human being. So what do we have here? This is from the Chandogya Upanishad. And of course, we have encountered the Chandogya Upanishad earlier on in the selections. So annama shitam tredha vidhiyate tasya yah svavishto dhatus tat purisham bhavati yo madhyastanma sam yonishthastan manaha. So I have, of course, the word-to-word translation, and of course, it's not available, as I said, in any of these iTrans thing. So 1 minute, where are we? Chandogya Upanishad. Yes, I am going to pull out the Chandogya Upanishad 6.5.1, and of course, you're seeing the meaning directly in front, but nevertheless, let me look at the word-to-word and the breakup that we can discover, because it's helpful in deciphering the meaning. So 6.5.1. Okay. Annam ashitam. So annam ashitam, the very first word annam ashitam is annam ashitam. Annam is food, ashitam is when eaten. So food, annam ashitam, food when eaten. Tredha is into 3 parts. Vidhiyate means uski vidhi hai, uska it gets divided. Okay, so annam ashitam treda vidhiyate, that's the first statement. Tasya, so of this, tasya sthavishtaha. Sthavishtaha is the grossest, जो उसका सबसे sthul hai, the sthula becomes in English as stools. Okay. So sthavishtaha dhatuhu tat purisham. Purisham is stools, feces. So the grossest part of food becomes feces, bhavati. So annam ashitam treda vidhiyate, tasya yah, of that, yah sthavishto, the grossest part of it, sthavishto dhatu, tat purisham bhavati. Wo purisham, purisham is useless. Feces, bhavati. Bhavati we understand from a basic Sanskrit, banta hai. So the first statement is, we can see in the translation, food when eaten, annam ashitam, treda vidhiyate, becomes threefold. Tasya yah sthavishto, what is coarsest in it, coarsest sthavishto dhatu, tat purisham, it becomes feces. Okay. Madhyam tanma, usme jo medium hai, that is neither very gross nor very subtle. Tanma, what, I'll just look at the tat purisham, madhyam tat mamsam. Actually, mamsam has not come out very clearly. Bhavati yo madhyamas tanma, oh, tan mamsam. Okay, so here the sandhi is not proper. Mamsam we understand, mass. तो उसका जो बीच का portion है, which is neither gross nor subtle, mamsam bhavati. Anishtah, anu is very subtle. So anishthas tan manah. We are going to the last part. तो उसका जो अणु जैसे जो subtle aspect है food का, वो मन बन जाता है. Okay, now there is a interesting commentary on this, which is there in this. So the particular book that I am referring to is the translation. I'll just stop the share and just show the book to you. This is Chandogya Upanishad. I think I had showed it the last time, by Swami Swahananda, which gives the word-to-word meaning also, and therefore it is useful for our understanding. So let me put back the slide here so that it is there as a reference in front of you. And let me share the commentary that has been written. Now, this is, it's not Shankaracharya's commentary directly, but it is a commentary which explains a few ideas interestingly. So, quote, excuse me. Here the food is analyzed into three constituent parts consisting of refuse matter rejected by the organism, nutritive ingredient assimilated by the body, and subtle essence by which the mind is built up. Okay. Now, quote unquote, this is very interesting. It is interesting to note here that the Vedic conception of the mind is purely materialistic, as that of recent science. The process of knowledge explained on the basis of psychophysical parallelism is found to be unsatisfactory by both the Upanishad and modern science, and they propose two entirely distinct schools of overcoming the difficulty. Science describes knowledge as a process inseparable from the material mind, while Vedanta posits the simple principle of pure knowledge or Chaitanya, which by its proximity makes the material mind capable of intelligence. Thus, the Vedantic theory explains the process of knowledge in a way more agreeable to modern science than other systems of older philosophy, which make mind a non-material entity other than the spirit. So let me explain this. Now, if you recall our studies of the Bhagavad Gita, I'm going to stop the share for a moment. You will recollect that at the Prayana Kala, which is the moment of the exit of the Atma from the body in your final moments, the Atma carries the qualities of the Buddhi and Manas with it. So the Buddhi and Manas are a part of the body, but the quality is what enters with the Atma and takes it forward. So when the body dies, the particular mind which knew all these things, like this mind of ours may know mechanical engineering, some other mind may know electrical engineering. So that knowledge will not be carried, that intelligence will not be carried. It is only the quality which are called as samskaras, correct? So therefore, mind per se is as perishable as the body, and therefore mind is matter. And mind is matter becomes very evident from the shloka that we have discussed, which says that when matter is consumed, annam is consumed, then the grossest part of annam becomes feces. The middle part of annam becomes the body, and the subtle part of annam, which is again matter, becomes a mind. So this is one example of the transformation of matter in our own human body. Now we will take up the next shloka, and I think it's fairly clear in terms of what it implies. Let's go to 6.1, gem number 6.2. Okay.
मैं
Now
छोटी सी क्वेरी पूछ ले राज.
Yeah, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. So let me stop the share.
ये जो जब हम इसमें मन नहीं शेयर में ही पूछना है, वो आप जो बोल रहे हैं, जो मन है बेसिकली वो हम मन जो गीता के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जब हम 4 लेवल करते हैं, आत्मा, बुद्धि, मन और इंद्रियां, तो इसमें मन जो है वो मन और बुद्धि दोनों को कवर कर रहा है.
Correct, you're absolutely right, 100% right. So because this is older terminology and all these divisions did not happen, right. So man is basically also the antahkaran, जो आपका अंतःकरण है, जिसमें बुद्धि है, मनस है, अहंकार है और चित्त है, memory है. Memory, your memory bank is also lost, right? When you die, you don't carry the memory of mechanical or electrical or whatever with you, so it dies with the body.
मतलब मैं इसको फिर रिलेट करूंगा कि जो मीडियम डेंसिटी की चीज है वो शायद इंद्रियों से ज्यादा रिलेट करेगी, और फाइनर डेंसिटी की, सटल डेंसिटी की मन, जो बुद्धि और मन वाला कंसेप्ट है उससे रिलेट करेगी.
हाँ, तो एकदम जो स्थूल है वो बाहर निकल जाता है, जो बीच का है वो शरीर और इंद्रियों में जाता है, और जो एकदम फाइन है वो जाके मन, बुद्धि, अहंकार और चित्त को बनाता है.
नहीं, जो मॉडर्न कंसेप्ट है उसमें माइक्रो न्यूट्रिएंट्स का मन पर असर अलग से स्टडी किया जाता है, और माइक्रो न्यूट्रिएंट्स मन से रिलेटेड समझे जाते हैं ज्यादा.
बिल्कुल. सो यही दिस हैज बीन एक्सप्लेन्ड दैट माइक्रो थिंग इज कॉल्ड सूक्ष्म. करेक्ट. सो सूक्ष्म जो है फाइनेस्ट पार्ट. सो सूक्ष्म के लिए जो यहाँ शब्द इस्तेमाल किया गया है उसको क्या है? सटलेस्ट अणु, अनिष्ठ अणु, जो अणु, हाँ, जो अणु की तरह है उसको जो है सूक्ष्म कहा गया है. So very valid question and such a wonderful way to interpret the ancient wisdom. Okay, so you go to 6.5.2 and let me go for a word-to-word sort of interpretation. So apah pitas treda hiyante tasam yah sthavishto dhatus tanmutra bhavati yo madhyas tallohitam yo anishtah sa pranah. So we have got the logic of the shloka. So apah means water. Pitah, jab peete hain, pitah and peete hain, such a equivalence in terms of meaning. आपह पीतास त्रेधा, जब पीते हैं तो उसके 3 भाग होते हैं, just like in the previous shloka. पीतास त्रेधा विधीयन्ते, विधीयन्ते means होता है. I think Vishnu, you may have to mute your 1 minute. Just check it out. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So pitaha is pina, tredha is threefold, vidhiyante, occurs. Okay. And therefore, what are these? Tasam, yah, of that, yah, sthavishtah we come across, the gross part of it. So what does the gross part of water become? Sthavishtah dhatu, ingredient, tat mutram. So mutram is a word that we are very familiar with. And of course, it has been used by Amir Khan in that movie, 3 Idiots, so you know the scene there. But yes, we all understand mutra. So the grossest part of water becomes mutra. Then madhyamah tat lohitam. Lohitam is red. What is red in the body? Blood. So आपह पीतास त्रेधा विधीयन्ते तासाम यह स्थविष्ठो, जो ग्रॉस है धातु, तन मूत्रम भवति यो मध्यस तल्लोहितम, वो लोहित बन जाता है. लोहित माने खून बन जाता है. एंड व्हाट डू वी हैव फाइनली? यो अनिष्ट है, जो अनिष्ट है, जो सटल है, सह प्राणः बन जाता है. राइट, दैट बिकम्स प्राणा. सो the question would be, is prana liquid? No, prana, and so prana is deemed to be a fluid. So it's a fluid electricity as we understand prana in the modern, if you look at the concept of chi that you have in the Chinese philosophy and prana, prana is not water for sure, because prana is not to be mixed up with the concept of blood. Blood circulates, takes energy, but the subtle energy is taken by the prana nadis, and therefore prana is deemed to be derived from water here because of its fluidity. That is the only logic that I find. So let me look at any commentary here. As prana is created before water, it is not a modification of the latter, but to remain in the body, it depends on water. Oh, so that's an interesting concept. So it says that while prana has got the fluidity properties, it needs the presence of water. Now, this is a mystical aspect for which I don't think I have a scientific thought process behind it in terms of modern science. So it simply says prana is dependent on water for its existence, but it is not a derivative of water. So probably distribution of prana is dependent upon water, which is why you have to drink water for the well-being of the body. So I'm going to stop here in case anybody has any comments on this aspect of matter transformation in the body. Okay. If there are no questions, I'll move to 6.3.
Prana is saas. Our breath is prana.
That is one way of looking at it, that breath is prana, क्योंकि जब हमें प्राण होता है तो सांस भी होती है. That is one way, but another way of looking at it is आपके शरीर में प्राण के नाड़ी होते हैं, and there are 72,000 nadis. So these are energy channels and the prana flows in them. Of course, the primary and most gross prana nadi is the trachea, which connects to your lungs and you breathe. So prana is taken to be the energy in the body. Modern translations of it are, bioelectrical energy. That's what they call it. जब कोई नाम नहीं आता है जबान पे,
ठीक है. प्राण एनर्जी रहती है. प्राण एनर्जी इज इम्पोर्टेंट एरिया. और एक और चीज था, तो हम लोग का लेवल्स है बॉडी, इंद्रियां, देन बुद्धि, देन आत्मा, देन परमात्मा. तो जो माइंड कहते हैं, तो माइंड का तो ये है कि इट इज अ कवरिंग, और उसमें मेडिटेशन में कहा जाता है इट इज आउटर कवरिंग. कोई वो मेटल पार्ट तो नहीं रहता. इट इज समथिंग कि वो जो दिखता तो नहीं है, बट वी फील. व्हाट इज एग्जैक्टली द मन हो जाए.
So obviously it is not matter in the sense you cannot cut open the brain to find where is mind, correct? So a lot of modern neurological studies have failed to uncover where exactly thinking happens. Where is the cognitive faculty? Nobody has been able to discover. Cognition happens in the entire body. So your manas is there in the entire body is what modern science would be telling you, because they have failed to find any area of the brain, particularly to be the seat of the mind. Okay, number one. Number two, in the stack that we have talked about, it is Sharira, Indriya, Prana. Prana is actually all over. It is the thing that gives life to the entire stack. So, Sharira, Indriya, Manas, Buddhi, Atma. So, जो प्राण शक्ति है, it comes from the Atma. It is generated probably from matter, but it has a deep connection with the Atma, is one more interpretation. So, जब आत्मा निकल जाती है, वो प्राण शक्ति ले जाती है. So, we can see here that prana is being used in two ways. One is the material prana, and the other is the prana which, see, one more interpretation is prana is cosmic energy. Okay, वो आत्मा की शक्ति है. That you will find in a different set of texts. So we need to keep both the definitions in mind, and also maybe realize that when the Upanishads were actually revealed to people, terminology was the last thing they had in mind. They had to have some word to express their understanding. So if
मेरा एक कमेंट है इसमें, ये मन वाले बात पर. जब हम ये तैत्तिरीय उपनिषद जब पढ़ेंगे आगे, तो उसमें ये बात आती है कि जो हमारे 5 शीट्स बोला है ना आपने, जो कवरिंग की बात बोला है, वो अन्न में कोश, मनोमय कोश और प्राण में विज्ञान में कोश और ब्लिसफुलनेस वाला जो आखिरी है, तो ये जो आनंदमय कोश, तो इसमें जो ये बाद में तैत्तिरीय उपनिषद में खुद ये बताया गया कि ये सारे कोश एक्चुअली बराबर साइज के हैं, हमारे शरीर के साइज के। ये एक दूसरे के ऊपर लिपटे नहीं बताया गया, सबको एक सिंगल उसका फॉर्मेट दिया है, सिर्फ ओनली हमने सबको कवरिंग बोला है। उन्होंने जबकि हम लोग डायग्राम जब बनाते हैं तो बाहर से अंदर को शुरू होते हैं और अंदर जो आनंद में कोश एकदम छोटा सा कर देते हैं वैसा नहीं है। वो सब बराबर है।
करेक्ट।
ये बोलते हैं कि कौन सबसे ज्यादा सटल है? जो ये कोशिश
के लिए है, समझाने के लिए डायग्रामेटिक कि हाँ इस तरह से है।
Anandamaya is the most subtle. Atul, to answer your question, Anandamaya kosha is the subtlest kosha. It is the most refined kosha, and reaching that kosha, you will have to tide over your Annamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, Anandamaya kosha. And
so, subtle is not small, it is fine.
Subtle is fine. वो अंग्रेजी
Finer, right?
Finer, not smaller.
Right.
Correct.
अच्छा कोषाध्यक्ष बनना पड़ेगा, अच्छा कोषाध्यक्ष, कोष जो है उसका अध्यक्ष।
तो आपको जो है पंचकोश अध्यक्ष बनना पड़ेगा आगे बढ़ने के लिए, आध्यात्मिक वृद्धि के लिए पंचकोश अध्यक्ष बनना पड़ेगा। क्या बात है। So we had done 1 minute. We had done 6.3. Okay, no, we have done 6.2. Now we'll do 6.3, and the logic is the same. Tejo ashitam tredha. When you eat fire, of course, how you eat fire, I don't know. We'll figure out. Tredha vidhiyate. So it goes into 3 forms. Again, the sentence construction is the same. Tasya yah sthavishto dhatu. Sthavishto dhatu, as we know, is the coarsest form. What happens? Asti bhavati. Asti, aap jante hain, asti is bone. Asti bhavati. यो मध्यमः स मज्जा. मज्जा इज मैरो, जो अस्थि के अंदर होता है उसको मज्जा बोलते हैं, मैरो. यो अनिष्टः स वाक् भवति. स वाक्, स वाक्. So how do you consume fire is what we have to find out. Let me just understand this sentence structure. So we have in the translation, fire is in the form of oily substances. जैसे आपका ऑयल हो गया, बटर हो गया, घी हो गया, घृतम जो है उसको तेज माना जाता है किसमें? आयुर्वेद में. So tejo tredha vidhiyate. In other words, this is like annam only, annam that we had in the previous one, but here we are taking a part of annam, which is clarified butter. So it is not hard annam, it is liquid. It is liquid. So fire is in the form of fatty liquids. Okay. And what is the logic from there? The fatty liquid, the grossest part of the fatty liquid becomes bone. The middle part of the fatty liquid becomes marrow, and the subtlest part becomes speech. Now, I do remember having, cod liver oil and, charcoferol for stronger bones. I don't know whether you've had that experience, but when I was young, when, children are weak, they are fed oil, cod liver oil. So that is supposed to help in bones. So there is some logic in this. I don't know, we'll have to analyze this in terms of more modern nutrient.
Raj, it is quite simple. Actually, food जो है दो चीजें देता है, एक nutrients देता है, एक calories देता है. तो इसलिए काफी direct है ये.
Okay. So what you're saying is, Ashizam. So fire is basically your calories. Okay.
Yeah. So दो part देता है ये food, हमारे energy भी देता है और nutrients भी देता है.
Perfect. So what is coarse becomes speech, what is middling becomes marrow, and what is subtle, subtle, anishtah sa vak. So you say na uske, you have this saying in English, he gave a very fiery speech. So जब जबान पे दम होता है तो आग जैसे होता है, is the usual saying. So let me see whether there is any commentary towards this. No, there is no commentary explaining. Okay, so interesting. So what is meant by fire in speech is speech which is clear, distinct, and eloquent. So there's a very, very interesting thing. अगर कोई तेजोमय होता है तो what you say is that he's got full तेजा, तेजस्वी होता है, तो जो तेजस्वी होता है उसकी वाक शक्ति भी ज्यादा होती है. So this is my understanding. Of course, I'm open to comments because there's nothing that I find here which explains this. So one aspect is like Sunilji mentioned, which is the calorific value of food. The other thing is obviously the transformation of food into clarity of speech and clarity of thought. So I think that kind of transformation is what is mentioned here. Also, I do recall my mother telling me that some kinds of food, if you have, though I don't know what it is, I remember long ago when I was a little kid, will help you speak and think clearly. You have bhindi, which is very, very important. You have, karela, which is supposed to be very good for thinking. So I don't know whether the fire aspect or the calorific aspect of these things is important.
जो आपने घी वाली बात कही थी ना, तो उसमें कैलोरी भी 9 कैलोरी होती है और कार्बोहाइड्रेट और प्रोटीन में 4 होती है, तो वो घी वाली बात भी कुछ हद तक ठीक है, जो हम घी को तेज मानते हैं बिकॉज उसकी कैलोरीफिक वैल्यू भी काफी ज्यादा है.
ठीक है, yeah. So I think there is some ancient wisdom in this sequence of transformation. So this is basically looking, so what is the whole logic of all this? We may not be able to immediately get the full logic of this, but what the Chandogya Upanishad in this section is conveying to us is that there is a transformation of matter, and matter is the subject of study here in this aspect of the Dvaita philosophy, which is matter and spirit being separate. So this we find is a total treatment of matter as they understood it with what they observed around them. So this is some empirical science that we see right in front of us. Okay, now let's come to 6.4. Annamay, okay, so now let me take out the translation here. Annamay, he Somya. Somya means mere bete, Somya, dear boy. Annamayam is made of food. Manaha apomay. Oh, so this is summarizing the previous three things. So Annamaya Manaha. So he says, mere bete, Annamaya Annamayam Manaha, Pranamayam Apaha, Tejomayi Vak. Right? So the mind consists of food, prana of water, and speech of heat. And then, so it is a summary of the previous statements. And then what is the next statement? Vagiti Bhuya Eva Ma Bhagavan Vigyapayatwiti Tatha Somayeti Ovach. So what does that mean? Bhagavan, that is now the son is addressing the father. So Soumya is the father addressing the son. So it's a conversation between father and son. Bhuya eva, fir se, ma, mujhko, vigyapayatu, explain, iti, tatha, iti uvacha. So this is basically a connective statement of conversation, the second half, which we can see in the translation. Of course, I didn't see the translation. I was trying to derive it from the word. So please, sir, venerable sir, instruct me further. So be it, right? So it's basically a connective. So the operative sentences here are the summary, which is the mind is made of food, prana of water, and speech of heat. So it's an interesting transformation of matter into human capabilities. That's what we see. This is looking at. Okay. Now we have gem number 7, which is from the Aitareya Upanishad. So let me try to, of course, I'm not at all chanting it in the traditional format. That's impossible unless you have learned it or heard it before and practiced. So Agnir, so I'm going to straight away read the middle box that we have, which is the Padached. So Agni Vakaha Bhutva Mukham Pravishat. वायु प्राण भूत्वा नासिके प्राविशत आदित्यः चक्षु भूत्वा अक्षिणी प्राविशत दिशः श्रोत्रं भूत्वा कर्णौ प्राविशत ओषधि वनस्पतयः लोमानि भूत्वा त्वचं प्राविशत चंद्रमा मनः भूत्वा हृदयं प्राविशत मृत्यु अपानः भूत्वा नाभिं प्राविशत Apaha reta bhutva shishinam pravishat. So there is the, okay, now this is from the I3 Upanishad. So it's another sequence which is describing how matter from the external world enters into us and becomes transformed into elements within ourselves. So how does this, so we have the word pravishata. Pravishata, you can see, enters. So Agni Vak Bhutva, Agni जो है वाक बन गया और उसने मुंह से एंट्री किया. वायु जो है प्राण बन गया. दिस आंसर्स योर क्वेश्चन राजेश. वायु प्राण भूतवा नासिके प्रविशत, वो नाक से एंटर करता है. आदित्य है चक्षु भूतवा अक्षिणी प्राविशत, जो आदित्य है, जो सूर्य देव हैं, वो आंख बन गए और वो अक्षिणी कहाँ गया? अक्षिणी 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 क्या है? अक्षिणी इज एंटर्ड थ्रू द आईज. सो द सन एंटर्ड थ्रू द आईज. ओके, देन वी हैव दिशः श्रोत्रम. दिशः श्रोत्रम भूतवा कर्णो प्राविशत. जो हमारी जो चार दिशाएं हैं, they are symbolic of the ability of sound to reach us. अगर दिशाएं नहीं होती तो आप तक श्रोत्रम पहुंचना नामुमकिन है. And therefore disha is also one devata, पूर्व दिशा, पश्चिम दिशा, उत्तर दिशा, दक्षिण दिशा, they are all, दिक देवता बोलते हैं. तो the दिक देवता जो हैं, they enter through the ears, karno pravishat. Then Oshadhi vanaspataya lomani bhutva. So what is Oshadhi? Oshadhi is obviously all the plants, herbs of healing and plants of trees. Lomani become hair. Twacham pravishati. So the hair that you have on the skin is conceived to be similar to the Oshadhi which grows on the earth. So earth, if the surface of earth is regarded as skin, then the Oshadhi on that is regarded as hair, So again, a kind of transference of the concept of an element on the planet Earth, which is seen to be present also in the human body. One more way of looking at matters. Then what do we have next? Chandrama manaha bhutva hridayam pravishat. So the mind is always taken in the traditional sense to be related to the moon, which is why you have the phrase, lunatic. Lunatic means the person's mental balance is affected by the position of the moon and the tides also. You may have read some evidence towards this. So here we have an ancient way in which the mind, the power of the moon is supposed to enter the mind, and the mind itself is supposed to reside in your heart. The heart is a seat of emotions. So a little complicated in terms of modern conceptualization of the heart as the muscular organ, because heart in the ancient tradition is hrit ayam, hridayam. Hrit bole to ekdam beech mein jo hai. What is the center of your being? Your atma. So of course, different terminologies, we may not be able to resolve it fully, but I'll look at the commentary when we finish the entire sequence. Okay. So Chandrama manaha bhutva hridayam pravishat. It has entered the heart. Mrityu apanaha bhutva nabhi pravishat. So mrityu is death. Apanaha. So you have these pancha pranas, prana, pranaya swaha, apanaya swaha, vyanaya swaha, udanaya swaha, samanaya swaha. So these pranas have different functions. One is for taking in of ingredients, other is for excretion, other is for blood circulation. So one of them, which is called apana, is where mrityu finds residence, and it enters through your nabhi. Apaha retah bhutva shishinam pravishat. This we will understand very clearly. Apaha, water, is your, is your desire. Retah becomes a seed, your semen. And shishinam pravishat, it enters into your testicles or your organ of reproduction. So this, if you look at the overall impact of this gem number 7, basically looking at how Agni, Vayu, Aditya, Disha, Oshadhi, Chandrama, and Mrityu and Apa, how these enter into you. So you can see that there are these Panchabhutas, Agni, Vayu, the other Panchabhuta, of course, you can say Aditya and Chakra. So Panchabhutas are not fully represented here, but elements in the outside world entering into the body. That is what is being represented here. So let me just take it forward. So fire becomes speech and entered into the mouth. Air becomes breath and entered into the nostrils. Sun became sight and entered into the eyes. Quarters, dik became hearing and entered into the ears. Herbs of healing and plants and trees became hairs and entered into the skin. The moon becomes the mind and entered into the heart. Death becomes apana, the lower breathing, and entered into the navel. Okay, so the logic of this is apana is exhalation. So exhalation is also the exit of prana, and therefore death is apana. That's the logical connection that I can make out. Waters become the seed and enter into the organ. So in Hindi, I think it should be no different. Agni Vak Shakti bankar mukh mein pravisht ho gaya. वायु प्राण बनकर नासा छिद्रों में प्रविष्ट हो गया. सूर्य चक्षु शक्ति बनकर आंखों में हो गया. दिशाएं श्रोत्र बनकर कानों में प्रविष्ट हो गईं. औषधियां तथा वृक्ष वनस्पतियां लोम बनकर त्वचा में प्रविष्ट हो गईं. चंद्रमा बन बनकर हृदय में प्रविष्ट हो गया. मृत्यु अपान निम्नतर वायु बनकर नाभि में प्रविष्ट हो गई. जल रेतस वीर्य बनकर लिंग में प्रविष्ट हो गए. So again, material transformation from, so when we say material, there is deemed to be no consciousness in all these things. Whatever has entered does not have consciousness. It is insentient. It is jada. So when jada enters into the human being, it is transformed inside the human being into these aspects, which are powers of a human being. So I'm going to stop here for a moment, for any questions on this. Comments on this, additional thoughts on this.
ये दिशाएं श्रोत्र बनकर कानों में प्रविष्ट हो गई, इसका कुछ explanation दे सकते हैं क्या?
Okay, so let me try to pull out Shankaracharya. 1 minute. This is Aitreya Upanishad. Aitreya. Aitreya 1.2.4, 1.2. No, they have not explained. 1 minute, let me just check up something else. So, okay, let me just check one more book and then I will.
I was just thinking like आग से voice जो है ना, fire से finest से voice. तो voice से मैं link करने की कोशिश कर रहा था कानों को, मगर I could not link it कि दिशाएं fire से कोई link आ रहा है.
No. So I will tell you what is the philosophical link. So the question is that if you don't see, where do you get the sound energy, because of obviously the presence of the atmosphere. Where is atmosphere present? It is present all over you. How do you distinguish, in one sense, the atmosphere all around you? Because you are planted on Mother Earth, you have directions. You have north, south, uttara disha, dakshina disha, purva disha, paschima disha. And then, of course, you have Ashtadik Devata. This is the traditional meaning. So the logic is that sound will not come to us unless, so Shrotram is the ability to hear. But ability to hear depends upon some sound coming from some distance around you. Therefore, it says that Dishaएं Shrotra ban gayi. So unless you have direction, there is no, and direction here I would take to be atmosphere. So unless you have atmosphere in directions around you, you would not be able to hear. For example, if you go to space, ether, there is no medium of transmission which is based on atmosphere. There you have to go for electromagnetic transmission. So my understanding here is कानों में प्रविष्ट करती हैं, right? So the ability to hear is the ability of the 4 Dik Devatas to enter into you, because these Dik Devatas are across the 4 cardinal directions. Therefore, we are saying that Dik Devatas, or Dik, basically Dik, directional atmosphere. I will give that name. No, I'm inventing one name. Directional atmosphere enters into you and gives you the ability to hear. तो आपकी जो श्रोत्र शक्ति है, एबिलिटी टू लिसन, that is dependent upon the four diks. This is my understanding. I have not found. Let me just check Radha Krishnan.
सुनील, आजकल की मॉडर्न साइंस भी ये कहती है कि आपकी बॉडी का डायरेक्शन सेंस जो होता है कानों की वजह से होता है।
हाँ, बैलेंस basically.
बैलेंस भी, और जो डायरेक्शन सेंस होता है ना, आप किसी भी डायरेक्शन को आप सेंस कर पाते हैं, वो कानों के जो एकदम लास्ट में हिस्सा होता है उसमें एक बोन लटकी रहती है वाटर ड्रम में। इनफैक्ट अगर वो बिगड़ जाती है तो आपका डायरेक्शन सेंस बिगड़ जाता है। तो जो पूरा आपका ऑलिफैक्टरी सिस्टम है, दैट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर योर डायरेक्शन सेंस। तो शायद वो एंशिएंट विजडम उसको समझती है इस बात को।
Yeah. So now that you have said, no, so now that you have said this, थोड़ा बहुत 12th standard का biology याद आ रहा है मुझे, which is it is called the cochlear system. Basically you have a little ball full of little bristles. हाँ, तो उसमें क्या होता है, and then you have this.
नहीं, अगर उसमें आपके कैल्शियम डिपॉजिट्स हो जाते हैं तो आदमी चल भी नहीं पाता है, बैलेंस बिगड़ जाता है पूरी तरह से।
I am suffering from that disease in fact.
तो अगर ऐसा है तब तो बहुत बढ़िया, इसीलिए आपको ये क्वेश्चन दिमाग में भी आया।
बड़े कानों वालों की दिशा सही रहेगी, वही भी तो होता है। कान जैसे गणेश जी को बड़े तो सुनना, तो दिशा उनकी अच्छी रहेगी तो दशा अच्छी रहेगी।
Okay, I think
we having 80% hearing loss in the left side.
Yeah. Okay. So have you
that's why I get some time walk down. वो रोटेशन डायरेक्शन का जो है ना गड़बड़ा जाता है, और then I not able to stand properly, walk नहीं कर सकते, stand नहीं कर सकते।
This is amazing. So this ancient wisdom is amazing. जबकि उन्होंने दिक का जो है कनेक्शन कान के साथ किया है, it is really amazing wisdom. I think what we should do is we should welcome Anil Kumar, who's just joined us.
Malik
Yes.
is here today.
Yes. So welcome Anil.
Anil, are you able to hear us?
Yes. Thank you very much, Rajshekhar.
Welcome Anil, welcome.
Welcome.
Wonderful.
I think I would be a silent spectator or silent listener most of the time.
Please, you're welcome to offer your comment anytime.
There must be someone to absorb the wisdom also, no?
But you are getting it from all directions.
Sharing, एक दूसरे से sharing करके wisdom absorb कर रहे हैं.
Correct.
So everyone is a listener, everyone is a speaker.
So,
I was late today. From next time, I would try to be on time all the time.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and so happy to have you join us. So where are we now? Oh, it's 11:30, boss. So we will stop here today because 1 hour is kind of getting through. And if I start the next look, so anyway, pace of movement is not important. The quality of discussion is more important. So any other thoughts or questions, Vishwarup?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking, Gita में हम लोग जो पढ़ रहे थे, our process of thinking was what we should do, how we should do, and now ये जो food habits है, इसका effect on mind and effect on body, इसमें हम समझ में आ रहा है कि सात्विक food का क्या effect आता है, everything जो हमारा अंदर जा रहा है, उससे हम लोग कैसा माइंड कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं। इनफैक्ट मैं उतना ज्यादा व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में जाता है एक्टिविटीज में इन्वॉल्व नहीं हो पाता हूँ, सॉरी फॉर दैट, बट मैं देख रहा था राजशेखर का जो आइडियाज है, कितना अच्छा आप बोल रहे थे थिंग्स, उसमें हम लोग जो गीता में पढ़ रहे हैं उसको हमारा मतलब सात्विक डायरेक्शन में जाने के लिए the ways or methods are coming out from whatever you are actually telling us with your wisdom.
Sir, boss, it is not my wisdom. मैं यहाँ से कट कॉपी पेस्ट मैन हूँ, मैंने पीछे सारा किताब पढ़ा है. Not my wisdom, is India's wisdom. Okay.
वो बात नहीं है, विजडम को कलेक्ट करने के लिए भी तो कोई चाहिए, कन्वर्टेड करने के लिए भी तो कोई चाहिए ना.
एंटीना इज रिक्वायर्ड.
एंटीना इज रिक्वायर्ड.
मुझे एक लास्ट बोलना था, हम लोग थोड़ा बहुत भक्ति मार्ग में कोशिश कर रहे हैं जाने के लिए, तो उतना तो भगवान का आशीर्वाद नहीं आया, लेकिन एक चीज समझ में आता है कि जो चीज हम लोग मतलब अच्छा चीज करते हैं ना, ये भगवान का एक आशीर्वाद रहता है, उससे हम लोग बढ़ते उस डायरेक्शन में. तो जो राजशेखर में हम देख रहे हैं, भगवान का एक छाया आपका अंदर है, जिससे आप जो बोल रहे हैं, whatever you are saying, your patience, your way of talking, इतना ज्यादा डेवलप हो गया है. हम लोग जो आपको देखे थे, you have totally given us a new thinking about human values.
सर मैं एक ही चीज बताऊंगा कि थ्रू आउट माई कैरियर मैं एक पागल की तरह किताब कलेक्ट करते गया, लाइक अ मैडमैन, बिकॉज आई वांटेड टू
किताब तो
अंडरस्टैंड.
बहुत लोग कलेक्ट कर लेते हैं, उन किताबों से वो एक्सट्रैक्ट कर पाना बहुत मुश्किल होता है.
करेक्ट. तो
किताबें
आई
तो हम
थिंक,
सबके पास होंगी, मगर उनसे एक्सट्रैक्ट करके सही चीज निकाल पाना बहुत मुश्किल है.
हाँ, सो
And
समवेयर
I like your prescription जो लिखा था आपने, उसने भेजा था, श्री वैष्णव प्रेस्क्रिप्शन फॉर स्पिरिचुअल साधना.
हाँ, वो एकदम बढ़िया है सर.
स्वस्वरूपा के नहीं अभी हम घूम रहे हैं.
करेक्ट. स्वस्वरूप क्या है, फिर परस्वरूप क्या है, फिर
Exactly.
परमार्थ स्वरूप क्या है, उपाय स्वरूप क्या है, विरोधी स्वरूप क्या है, राइट?
अभी
वो
हम
इतना
स्वस्वरूपा में घूम रहे हैं.
हाँ. सो वंस यू गेट योर स्वस्वरूप, जो उपाय स्वरूप है वो आपका साधना है. करेक्ट. जब तक आप साधना नहीं करेंगे, एंड यू हैव टू सेट योर गोल्स, परमार्थ स्वरूप, वो एकदम बढ़िया है. मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा वो, बिकॉज दैट इज द रियलिटी ऑफ आवर लाइफ. कि सबसे पहले अनलेस वी अंडरस्टैंड दैट वी आर द आत्मा, एंड अनलेस वी अंडरस्टैंड देयर इज परमात्मा, बाकी सब तो कुछ सेट ही नहीं होगा ना. सो आत्मा परमात्मा के बिना, इफ यू जस्ट डू मेरा जो है पुरुषार्थ क्या है, तो उसका क्वालिटी इज व्हाट वी हैव बीन एक्सपीरियंसिंग थ्रू आउट आवर लाइफ्स. If the concept of Atma has not entered into our mind. But once, like Arjuna, you understand that you are the Atma, then you become absolutely fearless. And then you can go and do anything, So that is the whole idea.
राज,
ठीक है
एक
सर,
क्लैरिफिकेशन चाहिए कि
जी बताइए.
ये जैसे अभी आप स्लाइड बना के दिखा रहे थे, श्लोकास, इसके मंत्रास दिखा रहे थे, तो जो 6.1, 2 और 3, 4 किया है, तो बेसिकली आप नंबर 6 को एक जेम मान रहे हैं.
हाँ, नंबर 6 is one gem, but अगर उसमें 3 श्लोक हैं, as you would find in that book, तो I have made it 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, because each one will have a different breakup.
Which means 108 में एक्चुअली इससे कहीं ज्यादा मंत्र लगेंगे.
हाँ, 108 selections. Selection can be single mantras or multiple mantras. Mostly single, but many of them are double and triple. So that's why I made it 6.1, 6.2.
हाँ, वो 6 वाला 4 पार्ट में था ना.
हाँ, 4 पार्ट्स में था.
Right.
And we also
अगर एचबी फिलिप की बुक देखें, तो उसमें भी 4 पार्ट में दे रखा है.
हाँ, सेम. मैंने तो वहीं से टोपो किया ना, बस टोपो मास्टर. It is totally topofied from there, so don't worry, right? So if you have that,
आपके लिए संडे के लिए डिस्कशन के लिए प्लेटफॉर्म सेट हो गया है.
हाँ, वो फूड स्लीप वाली जो बात है ना इस बार, तो
फूड
उसका प्रेजेंटेशन कंप्लीट हो जाएगा, तो आपको कल मिल जाएगा वो प्रेजेंटेशन.
नहीं, वो इनका प्लेटफॉर्म सेट हो गया है.
आज ये अच्छा रहा कि जैसा अन्न वैसा मन, तो ये चरितार्थ कर दिया कि जैसा, और उसमें ये भी है कि जैसे ये कहते हैं कि ईश्वर का प्रसाद समझ के खाएं. ये 2 श्लोक है ना कि खाने के लिए जीना है या जीने के लिए खाना है. तो जीने के लिए खाना है, खाने के लिए नहीं जीना. वो पहला वाला क्रॉस, तो जीने के लिए खाना है, मतलब है कि उससे वो है. एक फिल्मी डायलॉग याद आ रहा है शत्रुघ्न सिन्हा का. वो ये कहते हैं ना, जली को आग कहते हैं, बुझी को राख कहते हैं, उस राख से जो बारूद बने उसे विश्वनाथ कहते हैं. तो हम लोग का हीट से जो बने राख इज इम्पोर्टेंट. राख नहीं है, मतलब
विश्वनाथ मतलब कॉस्मिक फॉर्म.
विश्वनाथ. एक ये भी तो बाल सफेद होने पे उसने कहा कि भाई ऊपर तो राख है, तो बोले ऊपर राख दिखे तो नीचे, तो आग नीचे होगी ना. ऊपर राख से नहीं होता कुछ.
इस पे जेम नंबर 7 पे कुछ और मसाला कहीं से मिल सकता है डिटेल में इसको समझने के लिए?
मैं ढूंढता हूँ, बिकॉज द थिंग इज दैट जो कमेंटेटर्स होते हैं ना, दे गो बाय व्हाट शंकराचार्य सेड. शंकराचार्य may not have commented because for 2 reasons he will not comment. If something is too simple, he will not comment.
नहीं, it looks so simple, but it's a very complicated thing.
Exactly.
When you try to go in detail.
Yeah. So actually in the Upanishads, there are not many people.
And what we have is only bhasha.
Boss,
हम लोग के पास है.
So the whole point is this. I'll just stop the share for a minute and explain to you the nature of literature available in the Upanishads. Okay, Bhagavad Gita, plenty of literature available because it is easy to digest, easy to understand. But Upanishads, firstly, are in languages which are in ancient language where terminology is different. Number one. Number two, the number of commentators on the Upanishads are very limited. Very, very limited. And therefore, I will check, I mean, in the sense, mainly people depend upon Shankaracharya and interpretation of Shankaracharya, because Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya's commentaries are, you know, वो जो एक जो है सांप्रदायिक वॉल जो है उसके अंदर छुपा हुआ है, ज्यादा ट्रांसलेशन नहीं हुआ है. और एंड नंबर वन. नंबर टू, उन्होंने ज्यादा उपनिषद का जो है इतना डिटेल में भी नहीं दिया. शंकराचार्य इज रिगार्डेड एज रियली ग्रेट because at least for the 11 Upanishads that are there, word to word explanation, word to word commentary, shloka to shloka commentary he has given. Ab Ramanujacharya has not given it in that detail. Madhvacharya has taken a different course altogether. So there is no classical commentator, and modern commentators give only translation. Translation में if I could use this unparliamentary language, उनकी फटके हाथ में आ जाती है translation करते करते. Okay, and therefore you will not find too many. So in fact, जो भगवत गीता के मेरे पास जो 3 रैक हैं, उपनिषद का एक ही रैक है, वो भी आधा भरा हुआ है. It's not, you know, I have tried my level best. Generic interpretation है, philosophy के बारे में है, लेकिन word to word, detail to detail जितना हमें भगवत गीता में मिलता नहीं मिलता. So anyway, nevertheless, I will.
उतना नहीं भी चाहिए, उतना नहीं भी, खासकर इसके जो इसका ZEM 6 का जो है, अगर इसका मिल जाए तो I think that would be great.
नहीं, I will do
that. This is the basic अब आपकी बॉडी किस तरह से बनी है वो उस पे आता है, तो अगर इस पे थोड़ा सा और अगर डिटेल में मिले तो ज्यादा अच्छा होगा.
I will search for it and I will, if it is available with me, I will definitely post it in the WhatsApp group. I'll definitely do that.
So, there is a scope for you to write on this word by word. So there is a blank space, some vacuum is there.
It looks like we have referred only index. Book हमने देखी ही नहीं है, केवल index refer करके ही हो गया है. So we need to go in bit detail.
We have to go in a bit more of detail. So let me see what is available, and I will definitely post it, you know, if I find anything. If not, I will try to create one masala of my own and I will post it. Okay, but masala based on my understanding, not you know, जैसे हमारे HP सिंह हैं वैसे नहीं, हर टाइम पेलू सिंह की तरह नहीं. चलो ठीक है. So anyway, we are supposed to be highly illumined people, not doing any character assassination. So let us not talk about others. चलो.
अभी तो अपने बारे में बात करने ज्यादा अच्छा है.
हाँ, सही बात है, करेक्ट. हमारे में कितनी त्रुटियां हैं,
स्वरूपा अगर वो जान ले तो उतना काफी है, दूसरे बारे में करने से कोई फायदा नहीं है.
Correct. And this is the exact reason why, you know, number of my friends have said, other friends have said, let me join the Upanishad group of your batchmates. मैंने कहा बॉस, यहाँ बहुत batchmate specific comments होते हैं जो आपको समझ में नहीं आएगा.
उस समय फिर अपने आप को बहुत कंट्रोल करना पड़ेगा बोलने से पहले.
You cannot simply talk whatever you want to talk, you know, because obviously it's for a more generic audience. So anyway, with that, I'll end today's session. Thank you so much, and I'll do my homework. And I think next week we'll be able to go into Vishishta Dvaita, is what I can see, because we'll be able to finish the Dvaita part of it, 9 gems. Let's see how we go ahead. So thank you so much and take care, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.